Welcome. This is me, Valerie, and I want to read you a story. You've seen me read stories from a grade 3 reader. This time, I would like to read you an original draft of a book that I've written myself. Thanks for joining me. Let me take you to a different place through the eyes of a little girl who lived long, long ago. Welcome to Into the Night with Moon Man. Come closer, sit back, and let me tell you a story through the eyes and mind of a small girl who thought of herself as very alone in the world, even though she was surrounded by a loving family. The family lived on a small farm nestled deep in the forest. Their closest neighbors were the deer, bears, squirrels, and raccoons that found food, water, and shelter in those woods. The farm was a good place to live because it always gave her family lots of food, clean cold water from their well, and shelter from the wind, rain, and cold nights. Bella was named after her grandmother, and most people said she was short like her grandmother. Bella felt grown up because she was already 8 years old. She had sun-bleached brown hair just like the rest of her family, sun-baked brown skin, and her eyes that were sparkly light brown, the color her mother called hazel. Bella was a quiet child, and when she did speak, it was most often words spoken to chickens or cows or any other animal that would stop and listen. Daylight was a busy time for Bella and her family. As soon as that old rooster crowed cock-a-doodle-doo, Bella would jump out of bed, fix up the quilt, and put on her old clothes as fast as she could, and then she would carefully go down the steep wooden steps to start her daily routine. Bella glanced around the empty kitchen, knowing that her sister Anna, Joey, Paul, Frank, Mom, and Dad were already outside working in the barn. They had to clean the manure out of the stalls, put in fresh hay, and give the cows their morning hay before the family could eat their own breakfast. Quietly she headed out to the farmyard, determined to be the best little helper that she could be. With her tummy grumbling, Bella went to work. First she ran to the hen house and gathered breakfast eggs from the nesting boxes nailed along the inside walls. And as her fingers searched through the straw beneath them, the grumpy hens pecked her hand as she snatched up their treasure. Bella was feeling pleased with herself as she walked across the chicken yard counting the eggs she had gathered. What Bella forgot to do was watch where she stepped. Yuck! She yelled as she felt something slimy squish between 3 toes on her left foot. Gross! Bella looked around for Rooster so she could tell him what she thought of him for pooping right on the path. The guilty guy was probably hiding in the tall grass at the back of the pen, but Bella couldn't go and scold him because Mum was waiting for the eggs. On her way to the house, Bella stopped to rub her foot in a patch of fresh green grass, and getting most of the stinky gray and white mess off, she hoped there wasn't too much left between her toes. Yuck, 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 yuck! Just thinking about it made her nose wrinkle in disgust. Back in the house, Bella placed the basket of eggs on the kitchen table and looked at the empty water pail that needed to be filled. This was a good thing because it meant she could go outside and get her toes washed off before anyone noticed the unpleasant smell. And she really didn't want her brothers teasing her about it. So to get every speck of poop off, she went to the well and pumped some water in that rusty old basin, washed her feet, and then started the rest of her morning chores. This day seemed like every other day. Dad had already started the fire so the kitchen was warm and cozy. Mum was in the house and was at the stove turning the sizzling bacon in the big cast iron frying pan. And Bella set the table for Mum and ran outside to tell the boys that everything was ready. In a few minutes, Bella took her place on the long bench as her hungry family settled into their seats to share the first food of the day. In no time at all, the food was gobbled down. Dad listed the jobs that needed to be done before sunset, and the family quickly left the kitchen so that not a ray of daylight would be wasted. Everyone went to work. After breakfast, Bella was left to do the dishes and sweep the floor. In the afternoon, she had to go looking for blueberries to pick. Mom wanted to make pie for supper. And where was her family while Bella worked? Not far at all. Young and old had so much to do. There were cows to milk, hay to cut, fences that needed fixing, firewood that needed chopping and stacking. The garden work was constant. There were meals to make and enough food to be preserved to last through the long cold winter. Farm work is never done, and there is always more work than anyone can imagine. Nothing unusual happened during the day. The family worked and worked and worked, so that soon after the dishes were put away in the evening, the family headed up to bed to rest for whatever tomorrow might bring. And for Bella, there was a small cozy bed tucked up in the attic. It was already 8 o'clock, and Bella was so tired. She climbed up the stairs to the attic and placed her lit candle on a wooden crate beside her bed. Then Bella got out of her work clothes and put on her nightie before she crawled into bed. Then she carefully blew out the little flame on her stubby candle. Now that you know a little bit about Bella's normal day, let's look at her not normal night. Nighttime visitor. Bella smiled in the faded light of her room because at that moment she thought about how much she loved her small bed. She could lay snug and warm beneath her cozy quilt, listening for the familiar hooting sound of the barn owl, and every night she watched the beautiful starry night sky through her small attic window until she fell asleep. But on this night, sleep would have to wait. Something startled Bella, and she sucked in a puff of breath as her eyes opened wide. She noticed the light in her room was becoming brighter and brighter. She blinked and blinked again because she couldn't believe her eyes. A big, round ball of light was moving downward from the sky. It came closer and closer to her house. Her mind screamed, "What's happening? What's happening?" The sound of Bella's thumping heart pounded in her ears as she watched, waited, and witnessed Moon Man move so close that his big face peered through her attic window. The face that others had mentioned in passing as the man in the moon silently stared at her with his deep, dark eyes. And then, as if being given permission to speak, Moon Man slowly opened his mouth and said, "Come closer, my little creature." Bella slowly pushed back the quilt and let her feet touch the floorboards. Timidly, leaving the safety of her bed, she shuffled over to her window and closer to Moon Man. As she gazed upon him, her body trembled in a wave of fear. It caused her stomach to lurch, and now her palms began to sweat. But feeling scared also reminded Bella of her secret words. Bella whispered them to her own ears, to her heart, and to her brain. "Fear, go away." And no sooner than she spoke those words, her fear was quickly swept away by a bigger force. Instinctively, Bella sucked in a big, long, slow breath. And as she filled her lungs to capacity, a smile tugged at her face as she recognized a new feeling that was building in her tiny body. "I am not your little creature. I am my own creature, not too big and not too small. And what might you want of me?" In surprise, Moon Man shrunk back for one brief instant, but then returned to the window and spoke again. "Ah, you no longer fear me, do you, little girl?" Moon Man asked. "Fear you? You are probably a figment of my imagination, so why should I fear you?" Bella announced bravely, and after pausing a moment to consider her own words, Bella continued to speak. I'm positive that if I were shaken or wakened up by Rooster, as happens almost every morning, it would be you who would vanish instantly. Of that I am sure. Almost, she added more quietly. And with that said, a silence hung in the night air between them. Bella stood motionless with her eyes shut while hoping that Rooster would be the next sound to find her ears. She waited with only the sound of her heart ticking as the minutes crawled by. In what seemed like a lifetime, but in truth was only one short minute, Moonman broke the silence and firmly stated, "I want you to follow me." Then, in a softer voice, he continued, "Follow me now, little creature. Now, little creature. Now, little creature." How long he had repeated the phrase Bella could not say because she stood transfixed, almost in a hypnotic state, and felt no will to resist. As she watched him without speaking, Moonman's mouth softened into a slight smile, which made him look as if he knew a secret. His eyes changed to a silvery blue color, and he got smaller as he moved slowly back to the position where Bella had first noticed him. With Moonman at his more familiar size and in a softer glow, Bella felt more at ease. And right now she did feel like his little creature, so she obediently turned and headed down the attic stairs. Bella tiptoed through the kitchen and to the front door. The old door creaked as if to object, as she tugged at it just enough to slip her little body through the narrow opening, and off she went into the darkness. Fearless in the night. Bella knew the yard, and even if she had not, her movement was not taken with the awareness of where she was or what she was doing, but from the strange, powerful, pulling sensation of Moonman. He began to drift slowly above her, traveling low in the sky and moving in and out among the clouds that hung in his path. His path became Bella's path, and as she kept her eyes on his face, her feet moved, one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, until she was no longer in her yard, but at the edge of the dense woods that had surrounded her home. Moonman called out to her with not one more word being uttered, but by the sheer force of his will. She followed him further and further into the woods, and with no hesitation she picked her way easily past fallen trees and branches that in any other time would have impeded her journey. No fear, no question, her feet just moved forward. Moonman led her to a low swampy spot where her feet splashed through stagnant water and swamp grass brushed her legs. But her only awareness was that something felt good on her skin. Bella looked down to see where the new sensation came from. She saw the swamp water gleaming with reflected light from above. That made her smile because she did not feel alone. And with that wee smile, she looked up into the sky to see where Moonman had gone. When Bella spotted him again, Moonman was just a little further ahead, and he seemed to have stopped moving. She was walking quickly in his direction, and within minutes she was among tall poplar trees that blocked much of her view. "Moonman, are you waiting for me?" Bella whispered, as not to disturb the silence of the night. There came no answer. "Moonman, are you waiting for me?" she whispered again, just a bit louder. Again, no answer. Bravely Bella walked on as she wondered if Moonman was still there. Without realizing it, she was following a deer trail that curved along the forest floor. She thought of the musty, damp smell of the air around her and of the mushrooms that were sure to be growing nearby. She thought of the animals that were probably watching her from the shadows, and wondering why she was not at home, snug in her bed, Bella imagined them hiding or sleeping or hunting for a meal in the dark space around her. But those thoughts were soon interrupted as a familiar gurgling sound broke the silence of the night. Once again, Bella felt the gentle, hypnotic force pulling her further from home. Once again, she moved fearlessly, one foot in front of the other, until the trees parted to reveal the gurgling brook that was singing to Moon Man and all of the stars and planets in the night sky. Bella listened to the brook's voice. The melody took shape as droplets broke away from the surface and merged again in the stream. Water swirled quietly in the eddies and splashed noisily against the rugged rocks and the glistening stones. Bella was delighted to hear the music of the rushing water and to see Moon Man was now right above her in the starry night sky. Once again he spoke.
"Would you like to sit here, my little one?"
Bella looked around at where she might sit, and there before her eyes was a seat, a perfect seat, a big rock at the water's edge of just the right height and with a flattened top. Bella sat down and dangled her feet into the cool rushing water that soothed and tickled at the same time. "Oh, Moon Man, you have led me to a perfect place, a place more beautiful than I could have conjured in my dreams." Moon Man replied,
"This place is beautiful, but you cannot stay much longer because it's time for me to continue my journey across the sky, and it's time for you to go back. But before you do, I want to tell you something to remember."
"What is it?" Bella asked.
Moon Man said, "When you dream at night, you go from place to place like a boat being swept along in a strong current of water. You will be taken to many weird and wonderful places, but because you are asleep, you cannot choose what you dream about. When you are awake, you can have different kinds of dreams, and you can control where your mind takes you. Daydreaming is fun. Think about all the things that make you feel happy. Imagine what you would want to do tomorrow, or what you would change if you had a magic wand. Imagine adventures you might like to take with a friend, a pet, or a unicorn, because the more you use your imagination, the stronger it becomes. Imagine whatever makes you feel good. Imagine everything and anything."
Bella was already thinking about what Moon Man said when he made another suggestion.
"And when you look up into the night sky and see the planets and the stars, you might think of me. And if you do, whisper to me about your dreams, because, Bella, I would like to hear your stories too."
And with a wide smile spreading across his face, Moon Man added with a loud chuckle,
"And my brave little creature, also remember, don't forget to watch where you're stepping when you walk barefooted in the farmyard."
And with those last words, Moon Man moved up and away with an unusual speed, and in a flash was out of sight. Blinking her eyes to make sure she saw what she thought she saw, Bella scanned the sky looking to see if she might catch another glimpse of Moon Man. Deciding that he really was gone for now, she once again looked down at her feet and saw them resting in the brook. Through the swirling water, she saw the shadowy shapes of minnows passing by her toes. And as a fish splashed in the water just downstream, a deeper relaxation claimed her body. Bella dreamily whispered, "I could stay here forever." But of course, Bella could not stay where she was because a very loud cock-a-doodle-doo, cock-a-doodle-doo rang out from across the barnyard. As it was every morning, wise Rooster, who watches the sun and the stars and the moon, knew it was the right time to call Bella from her dreams. It was time to awaken the whole family to a bright new morning. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends and family and check out the other videos on my channel. Of course, please subscribe so we can stay in touch.